Well, welcome to our fifth workshop on annual conference Creation Justice Organizing. And we're excited that we have leading us today one of my colleagues, and been working with him for a number of years, extremely competent and committed to this work, Bob Downs. Bob graduated from Cornell University in 1973 with a master's in applied physics. He spent 30 years in the United States Air Force as an engineer, physicist, and program manager. He retired as a colonel in 2005 and resides in Dayton, Ohio with his wife, Barbara. Since retirement, Bob has focused on environmental stewardship, driven by his belief in a creator God who expects us to tend the garden, and his concern that we are failing in that commission. Bob founded the Green Team at Christ United Methodist Church in Kettering, Ohio, and is an active member of the Environmental Justice Ministry of the Greater Dayton Christian Connection. He served on the board of Ohio Interfaith Power and Light from 2007 to 2017, working on environmental justice issues as their advocacy chair. Bob chairs the Creation Care Task Force of the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church and is an Earthkeeper commissioned by the General Board of Global Ministry of the United Methodist Church. He currently works with our Creation Justice movement, developing a certified lay ministry course in environmental stewardship and creation justice. So we welcome Bob, who's going to lead us through today. And a reminder to you to mute yourself if you're not speaking, and of course unmute while you are. So turn it over to you, Bob. And
How do you want?
Bob, you're muted.
I'm muted.
Bob, you're muted.
Sorry. What I did is apparently I was unmuted and I muted myself. I apologize. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to share a slide presentation with you that will focus on the material. One of the things I did share, though, in the chat is Jenny Phillips asked us to make sure everybody is aware that if you're interested in Earthkeeper training, the first class is coming up for this year in late March, and the deadline for registration is March 1st. And more importantly, registration is going to be sort of handled on a first come, first served basis, and the slots are filling up. So if anyone is really interested in that, go to the link I gave you in the chat. That will take you to a page from which you should be able to get other information. It's the one Jenny shared. I'm not sure it's absolutely the direct to registration, but at least it'll get you in the right direction. I'm going to mention them later because it really is part of this presentation, but I wanted to have people see that on chat. Okay, with that, I'm going to share a screen with you. And if we do this right, we'll start with a slideshow here. Maybe. There we go. Our focus is on planning and structuring your conference Creation Justice Ministry, and it's going to have different names and different styles for every conference. So what I've done is actually the material I'm presenting is stolen directly from a presentation we make as part of the Loving People and Planet program that is aimed at the local church. But this is the workshop that we're going to have actually starting at the end of February. So an unabashed advertisement for that. If people are interested in this, please sign up. But recognize the purpose of this course is the workshop is setting up green teams or establishing ministry in the local church. And there's a lot of things you have to take into account. Each church is different. Well, the same thing really applies to annual conferences. What you'll find is each conference is going to be different in terms of its makeup, the nature of its structure, how geographically diverse it is, The issues and concerns, particularly the key environmental concerns in the conference. So everybody is going to be a little different in how you set up a team, even what you call the team. I will give you a short summary of what we did in West Ohio, only as an example. And I know there are others on this call that can give you examples of their conference activities. In West Ohio, sometime in the early 2005, 2006 time period, it was actually before I was involved in the program, a group of concerned clergy and lay people got together and said, you know, we ought to be doing something in this area. We know that the bishops are about to issue a letter calling for more activity in environmental stewardship. Climate justice is an issue. We are having more and more concerns about things like climate change and global warming. Our church should be doing something about it. There's certainly enough theological justification for that. So they got together and actually put together a little videotape that they then went all over the conference and shared. And from that and the meetings that they went to, and they were able to draft a group of people that were interested enough to actually go and actually form what they called a task force. Now they did that actually through a resolution to the annual conference, 2 resolutions actually, one calling for the establishment of a task force to look at the issues of climate change and environmental issues within the conference, and another one calling for the individual churches in the conference to actually form green teams and to be concerned and work on these issues. That was done in about 2008. Shortly thereafter, it was echoed by the bishop's letter, and things were up and running. I'd like to say it then took off and just overpowered the conference, but we all know that didn't happen. There is a continuing interest and concern. We have continued with a number of programs, but it ebbs and flows with other issues that are confronting the conference and other concerns. And I think everybody's going to encounter that. You're going to find that there'll be times when things are moving forward, and there are other times that they seem to be moving backwards. But if you're going to put together a team, the first thing and the best chance of success is to actually look at, you know, first you have to look at your conference. What are the assets? We usually talk about assets in terms of people, property, and location. And this slide was prepared for a local church, but the basic categories don't change. Who are the people in the conference? I'm going to spend a little more time on that on another slide, so I'll come back to that. Property, land, what are the concerns? One of the concerns we have in Ohio, for instance, is we have a number of churches in the the eastern part of the state that have land that actually is being used for production of fossil fuels. So that becomes an issue when you're talking about concerns over producing too much carbon dioxide and what have you. We have other areas that are suffering from things like floods and the problems that come with early spring rains that are not being absorbed properly. We have areas that have no great concern at all for the environment because they don't think, you know, there may be urban areas that don't see themselves as really connected. So you're going to find that in your conference too. How you address and what you address is going to depend a lot on the nature of the people in your conference and what they're doing and what they see as problems. One of the things that will really be an issue here is the size of your conference. Do you want to have a committee that actually meets occasionally? And does that mean driving halfway across the state of South Dakota, say? That might not be the best way to operate. Zoom may be your only alternative. Certainly during COVID, our team has fallen back on Zoom in order to communicate. We actually are finding the people like it because it doesn't mean a 2-hour drive to Columbus for a 2-hour meeting. You know, so there are some pluses there as well as minus. One of the things, though, as you engage the local conferences, you really need to look at your people. Probably the key person you need to look at is the bishop and the cabinet. Are they receptive? Are they supportive? Are they out leading the charge on climate justice and climate concern? Or are they more reticent, perhaps not really engaged at all? You need to think about whether you want to build the team from the ground up or work kind of from the bishop down, if you will. We did a little bit of both in Ohio. The initial program got started from the ground up, and we actually had a pretty strong program going in the, as I say, in the early 2010, 2012 time period. And we were working with other organizations in the conference. But we also had a bishop that was interested. I wrote a note to him shortly after the bishop's letter was published and asked basically just simply, where does this stand in your list of priorities and interests? And are you interested in helping us get people more involved in the issue? And it was Bishop O at the time. And he said, yeah, I am. Let's get together and talk about it. And we did. It was interesting. I kind of thought that would mean that he would decide that he wanted to do some promoting and what have you. But he actually, when we sat down with him, he said, you know, people don't pay a lot of attention to Bishop. We can say something and the churches may or may not pay much attention to us. So what he actually encouraged us to do at the time, we were looking at putting together a workshop on buildings and how churches could improve their environmental footprint and at the same time save money in terms of fossil fuel costs. And basically he recommended we do that at the district level because that was a better place to get people together. And it turns out that a lot of the work you do, if you're working on buildings, depends on what your local utilities are. Districts tend to be in one utility area, whereas the conference is not. So that's what we did. Second group that you will be dealing with, boards of trustees, people that make budget decisions in the conference. A lot of things that you want to do are going to depend on either spending money or spending money in certain ways. Where you invest the money. One of the resolutions that we put through in West Ohio was actually the fossil-free UMC resolution. And if it had done anything at General Conference, that might have impacted how we spend our money, how churches are encouraged to invest their money. So another group that you might want to think about in terms of involvement, at least kind of getting an idea of whether you're going to have support or opposition, is the boards of trustees and also financial administrators for the conference. We actually had good support from our financial CEO, or I guess it's Chief Financial CFO, because he had been involved in some of the early discussions that we had, and he was supportive of some of the programs that we tried to do. One of the things he was particularly supportive of is we renovated the bishop's residence, and when they did that, they took into account some of the impacts in terms of environmental impact. So that was good. Another group that I just strongly suggest you not even try to proceed without getting involved is the United Methodist Women. Frankly, they've been leading the charge in this area for years, and are in most, well, I would be sure that every conference they're active. Not every church has a real active UMW, but every conference does. And if they're not already leading the pack and organizing, a conference committee or a conference working group, I can assure you they will be interested and supportive and helping. We have always had the president of the United Methodist Women for our conference as a member of our team. And it just so happens it's the lady in the center of the picture here. She just happened to be at this conference that was going on. The person to the left is Liz Lee, who heads the program for UMW. And these are people that you can get a lot of support from, you can work with. They have tremendous communications networks. And then generally they'll actually be out ahead of you in terms of looking at things that can be done and need to be done. The other thing is look at your congregations. Where is there strength for participation? Try to get, some of this we discussed at the last workshop meeting, but when you're looking at building a committee or a team, try to get diversity. And that diversity goes across the board. Age diversity, geographic diversity, lay and ordained ministry participants. Think about some of the places that you might be able to engage with nature. For instance, the camps ministry. Most of the United Methodist camps have programs already that deal in some way with environment and with social justice. But it may take just a step or two to actually reach out and get involvement in a team that you're putting together. As I say, UMW, certainly United Methodist Men, if you have an active program in your conference and if they are involved, by all means. And then try to get involvement of urban and rural and suburban churches and places, because they have different interests and different concerns, and will also bring different strengths. So as you're putting together the team or thinking about engaging the team, you want to kind of work all of those issues in. Now, one thing, if you, at some point, you will probably want to have discussions, at least with the bishop, to find out where the bishop stands on these issues, what kind of priority they put on it, and whether or not they're willing to be helpful in terms of not only getting the team established, but keeping it active. One possible advantage is just recently, of course, the bishops came out with a statement pledging support to environmental justice and environment in general. In the slide are the 5 areas that they reaffirmed. And one way of perhaps engaging your bishop would be to write and ask what they see as their commitment to these pledges, whether they see these as something they want to really actively engage in or not. Because if they do want to actively engage in it, then you have an ally that can be very helpful in moving forward in not only organizing a team if you don't have one, but also having the team interact with the conference and get something done. So we have in the UCMJ, we've been saying to our folks, talk to your bishop. Not belligerently, but just say, hey, this just was published by the Council of Bishops. What are your thoughts on it? Are there anything? We are here to help try to engage. Where do you want help? How can we help? And it might be a good way to get a team not only started, but get it active. Connection. As you operate, you are not isolated. First thing is look at the community of houses of worship in your conference. Not only the United Methodists, but your other denominations and what they're doing. Are they already organized? Is there an Interfaith Power and Light or a similar type of organization that you can work with and engage with and get support from? I think in most cases, you will find that there are organizations like that, and they can be very helpful. especially if you want to go beyond the walls of the church in terms of some of your activities. So look at where there's the possibility of building alliances with other houses of worship. And I say houses of worship because it's not just Christian churches. We found here in Dayton, for instance, a very strong support from the Jewish community. We have actually an Islamic support activity. Other areas will have Buddhist and Hindu and Sikh and other groups that might be interested and be involved. And you can build a lot of programs and with programs by getting mutual support and help each other. Look at your United Methodist connections. I'm going to list in the next slide the agencies that are supporting UMC creation justice activities, and don't hesitate to call on them for help in ideas, in programming, in help on just how to reach out and get things organized. Do the same with your community organizations and your environmental organizations that are active in your area. Most conferences are built at a state or sub-state area or maybe multi-state area. In almost all cases, you will find secular groups that are focused on the environment that actually want to partner with faith communities and that will be very supportive in helping maybe find out about some of the issues that are prevalent in your area. If you're ever going to decide to be advocates in your state house or what have you, they will be allies in that. And many times they're already doing some of the things you might want to do. And, it just makes sense to cooperate to the degree that you can cooperate. There may be some issues that just don't work that way, but don't overlook the possibility. As far as boards and agencies, in April of last year, these boards committed to a net zero emissions by 2050. They're actively looking at their programs and their resources and their buildings and what have you, and how they're going to meet those goals. And I know in almost all cases, they would be happy to share what they're doing with you and also help you think about different aspects of a climate justice or an environmental stewardship ministry. I think in particular of obviously GBCS, Church and Society, is heavily focused on creation justice and all types of justice ministries. GBGM runs the Earthkeeper program. As you are developing a team and putting together a program, I would highly encourage as many of your conference team members to become Earthkeepers. It's a broad background in a lot of the issues that relate to climate justice, that relate to environmental stewardship, and it will give you a core of people that are pretty well trained to then go back and engage the conference. And so that's just one of those situations where you have a natural education opportunity that is just asking for participation. Another part of GBGM that I noticed this during this last giving season, they have actually increased the number of advanced specials and what have you that deal with sustainability and regeneration and those kinds of issues. So if churches are more open to engaging with mission and advanced specials maybe than doing some advocacy at the local level, that's another place that they might want to engage. Talk to Jenny Phillips about what UMCOR is doing in these areas and where you may find local interest in participating. General Board of Higher Education obviously is focused on particularly on ordained leadership. They have a lot of programs that are going and they can help with those. A lot of their classes are open and you may find that some of those are particularly helpful. If you have a seminary in your conference, find out if it's a green seminary and if they have a program that is reaching out to the training of not only your lay, but not only your ordained, but also your lay people. And they can be strong allies in any effort that you have. Let's see, discipleship, when you're reaching out and looking at camps, they run the camps program. They also are involved in a lot of youth program. They are developing resources for worship, worship areas that you can encourage within your conference, things like Earth Day activities, Earth Sunday activities, Season of Creation, which is an alternate season in the lectionary for September. And those resources are being developed by Discipleship Ministry. They also run the lay certification program. And if you want to get people involved in your local churches, we encourage you to participate in the lay servant program, of which the Loving People and Planet is the environmental stewardship program that people can get certified on. They can get credit for lay servant certification, and it gets more of your laity involved. UMW, UMM, you're aware of. Westpath, again, deals with investments. They can help you if you want to know where there are positive emphases on investment or negative emphases on investment in environmentally polluting industry, and they can help you there. They have some guidelines. They're not quite as strong as the guidelines we have in some of the other areas, but at least they do have some information that can be shared and used at both the conference and the church level. Okay, this is the advertisement for Jenny. As I say, Earthkeepers, I strongly advocate getting as many members of your team through Earthkeepers as possible, because they really gain a wealth of information in a lot of different areas. The program that is coming up, the spring training, March 18th to April, I can't read it. Registration has to be by March 1st. So if anybody is interested in that, go directly to the website and try to find out what's going on. I talked to Jenny this morning, and she said the slots are filling up, and probably will be filled before March 1st. So if you have people that are interested, do that now. Well, stay on for the talk, but then do it afterwards, please. Voice. How can you reach out to people? How do you want to involve your conference in environmental stewardship? And there's as many directions here as there are, again, focuses and conferences. Study groups, worship, facilitating worship in things like we talked about, Earth Day, and maybe build around Season of Creation, developing localized resources that can be shared and used throughout your conference. Statements, church statements, conference resolutions. It's a good way not only of highlighting issues, but also highlighting awareness of the fact that, hey, we have an environmental stewardship team, and we're doing things. And we came to the conference with a resolution to change the way we invest or support a particular local issue. Even if it doesn't go through the conference and get passed, it raises awareness. And a lot of times you will find maybe a subgroup of the conference churches that want to pursue something and get involved. So think about, how does the conference work in terms of its annual activities? And then how do you intermesh with that? Prayer partners. Think about ways of engaging people who might not be able to actively be involved in in planting trees or visiting the State House or renovating their church. Maybe they are less able for one reason or another, but they can still be involved in education and also in prayer and supporting the overall activity. And it's something that I think we often overlook as we're organizing active, people who are going to go out and do X, Y, Z, that we can involve more of the membership supporting us through prayer. And it really is something that we ought not to overlook. Kind of going along with that, by the way, is as we do things, also celebrate the successes, celebrate when something is done, either through worship or through a proclamation of some sort, or just sharing maybe in the newsletter, conference newsletter, this is going on and this has been successful. It does two things. Number one is it helps you recognize that you're making progress, that God is working with you, and we have something to show for it. It also helps other people know that, hey, there was a good program in this church that was really successful. Maybe one of the other churches would like to try to start the same program. In West Ohio, we have a church down in South Central Ohio that has been doing a series of outdoor activities with members of the church. They go for a hike, or they go to a park and plant trees, or they do something that gets people involved, and they were able to do it during COVID because it got people outside. And there's a whole bunch of neat programs that spin off of that. Well, it was shared in the newsletter, and now some other churches are trying the same thing. Advocacy is a little bit of a stretch for some conferences and churches, but it isn't for others. And that advocacy can be encouraged at the individual level or at the group level. We have several workshops to help people with that through the UCMJ. So yeah, the Creation Justice Movement. I mess up the letters, I apologize. And that is certainly something that often needs to be done. Think about involving in those campaigns your senior leadership. If the bishop is willing to take the lead on something, that's a great way of giving an example to others. So basically, there's a whole bunch of things you can look at and try to get together. And you have to decide the size that you want to make the group. You don't want to be so big that you just can't get things done. But on the other hand, you want to try to have a diversity of opinion, a diversity of ideas. And then you just really need to survey and look at your conference and figure out how to get moving. What we suggest when we talk to the individual churches is something called a SWOT analysis. And most of you have probably seen this in one form or another. Basically, when you're sitting down and you want to, particularly if you were just starting a ministry in your conference, as you develop it, you need to really kind of figure out, how do we go? What are the strengths? Where are there strengths that we can build on? Either programs that already exist, or people that can be strong allies, or an idea that or a problem maybe that comes out of an area that needs addressing. What are the weaknesses? Where is the conference strong? Where is it not so strong? Maybe it even has a lack of an activity. A strength might be UMW. A weakness might be a similar program if the UMW is not actively involved in some of their national programs. Where are there opportunities? Try to find something that's going to work to start with. Build from that, rather than just confronting a big issue and just feeling like you're getting nowhere. And what are the threats to overcome? And by threats, I don't mean necessarily physical threats, but just what are the obstacles in trying to move forward? If you can figure out ahead of time and engage them, many times they may not be obstacles after you work with them. So what we're going to do is invite people to break into groups of about 4 and just talk a little bit about, start off by sharing what is going on in your conference. Do you already have an active team and you're already busily involved? Or have you never heard of anybody else from your conference that even cares about this issue? And then maybe talk a little bit about what you perceive as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within your conference. And as you share, hopefully you'll be sharing with people from other conferences, and you might get some ideas on how to deal with some of them. Maybe one of them has already dealt with one of the threats that you perceive, and they can share how they did it. We're going to break for about 15 minutes, give you a chance to talk a little bit. Then when we come back, I have like one slide left, and we'll be open perhaps for some questions if the group has them. So if that's fair, Dan, do you want to break into groups? Okay, hopefully everybody is back. We apologize that 15 minutes isn't enough time for everybody to get a chance to talk. We were learning a lot in our group. I hope you all were able to do that and maybe can re-engage as we go along with hearing some of these things. One of the intents of having the opportunity for the conferences to share via, at least within jurisdictions, is to build on a lot of the things that we're learning. What I want to do is go to the last slide, only just to kind of bring this together. There are a lot of different things we didn't even cover. One of the things that was brought up in my discussion that I hadn't really focused on here, but funding becomes an issue. And how do you fund programs? So that's something that, again, will depend on the individual conference, but you may be finding yourself doing independent funding, or you may be part of, you may be incorporated into the conference program, and they may actually allocate some money. It just varies from place to place. So let me share this last slide, which hopefully will come up. Okay, now you're seeing the last slide we showed, but that's not the slide I want to show you. So let me go back and come back and, okay. Okay, now I think I can share the last slide. Okay, I'm not going to blow this up bigger. I think everybody hopefully can read it. It's just an attempt to help you try to figure out how to plan. You've obviously set some goals. If you're going to set some goals for your team, we recommend doing something that at least allows you to maybe plot your progress. Be specific, come up with something measurable. It doesn't have to be dollars and cents or what have you, but at least something that gives you an idea of how you're progressing. Ideally, start especially with some things that are attainable. Start with what we call low-hanging fruit, something where you'll be able to celebrate some success and build on the success. Relevancy, obviously, I mean, do something that makes sense and actually applies to the area you're trying to work, not just random. And pick something that isn't going to go forever. Try to find something that has at least a sort of a time period. It's partially because that's how you determine whether it was attainable. Is you're able to achieve something maybe by next year. Maybe it's not the whole project. Maybe it's just the first step, but at least it gives you that sense of being able to kind of measure where you're going. I'm going to basically end the share at this point and offer what little time we don't have a lot of time, and I know Dan has a couple of announcements he wants to make. So Dan, I'm going to let you say, do you want to offer any question time or not?
What's that? I'm
do
sorry.
you want to offer any opportunity for questions? If not, or if so, that's up to you. If not, I know you wanted to make some announcements.
Well, let me make the announcements. It's 12:58 my time. I want to respect people's time. but I think we could run an extra 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
But just to announce our next training, our next workshop, like to call these workshops as opposed to trains, our next, because it's really participatory. Our next workshop will be in 2 weeks at the same time. And we'll be looking at the types of programming and activities that you can do in your conference. And so again, we'll send out a registration. There is a registration already in the newsletter, and we'll resend a registration link to folks who are interested. And again, that's in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll have our final one on basically sustaining and restoring yourself and others in doing this work. And so that's our announcements. And so, yeah, let's give up another 5 minutes or so if people have questions, and then we'll sign up for this week.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions that they want to, either questions or something they
Yes.
really feel that they just want to share with the group? Sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, Bob, was wondering if you're going to make the slide deck available.
I can do that.
Yes, would you please?
Sure. Yeah, now they're just the slides. There's not a whole bunch of verbiage
No,
behind them.
no, that's okay. I mean, we
Okay.
can, I think I have enough knowledge of the
Yeah.
process that I can interpolate from the slides.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Just
But I think
input.
it would be very, very helpful to those of us who are working in developing both annual conference and local church
Sure.
green teams. So,
And
yeah.
I'll forward it to Dan, and then he can forward it to the attendees list.
Okay, great. That'd
Okay.
be perfect.
Good. Anyone else?
Well, I had a question. So my name is Abel. I'm with the Rio Texas Conference, and so I was actually in the last grouping with Mel and then Ella, which we didn't catch. Forgot who else was with us, but
Carl was with us, but he had sound.
yeah,
problems.
Carl. Yeah, hello, Carl.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I also say that at least the three of us are from the South Central jurisdiction. So now there is this coming together of that jurisdiction. But is that also happening in other jurisdictions? Because I guess.
Yes.
Okay, good. Because
there are teams in each jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because what I'm struck by is just I really appreciated the list of just a reminder of how the agencies across the board are engaging in this. But we now, may be on the beginning of, this is number one, this is all long work. And how do we, and I really am going to be valuing the conversation on sustaining this, because it's just how do you methodically work through this, but also what I want to get better at is to understand how to engage all sectors across the spectrum, particularly within the church, because what I picked up from the Texas Impact, the United Methodist Women's legislative event, and I think it was he's what do you call a lobbyist. He was giving a description of how how creation justice, creation care, climate justice really does cut across the spectrum of business and communities, et cetera, et cetera. It's just how to effectively engage that, knowing that we have a lot of diversity theologically, and then also that people's discipleship. Yeah, so how is creation care or climate justice part foundational to our discipleship that people's individual political lenses have overshadowed this aspect of our discipleship?
Well, I think to answer a beginning answer to that is we put it all within the theological framework.
Yeah.
And so Pat Watkins has developed a wonderful study that's part of the United Methodist Women's Study Group with that just goes through in depth the entire theological framework of creation justice. And so when we begin from that standpoint, we're able to transcend differences of political nature.
Amen. Thank you.
I want to quickly respond to that too, because the Loving People and Planet workshop that we're doing, the training coming up here
Yes.
February 20th, we start with the theological underpinnings, and Pat is the presenter for that. And the book that Pat edited and brought that all together in one place will be this book for the study course. So it's really focused a lot on helping people, thank you, helping people to come together as engaging their local church and empowering them and equipping them to do so. So if you have folks out there, please consider having them sign up for that course, because we're attempting to do what you seem to be asking.
Chris, can you put in the chat the contact for that, or an email or whatever for the sign up for that? And I'm also wondering if Daniel could put the contact for the next 2 trainings, because I kind of piggybacked in on this today, thank God.
Yeah,
And
I'm not able to do that being on Zoom right now, but you'll get sent those links out automatically. So
okay, great, thank you.
Dan, though, Phyllis came in on Mark's link, so we may not actually have your email.
Right.
I was going to say, Mark sure changed.
Yeah, right. But he's here too.
Really quickly.
Right, but Mark is here too.
Yeah, but Phyllis, there are a lot of really good resources through the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement.
Right, and I have access to that too. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So the links are actually also in the most recent newsletter.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I was madly trying to look for the connection and I'm not coming up with it, but it is in the newsletter. If you have the newsletter, you can follow up on all of those.
Bob, why don't you put a link to the newsletter in the chat if anybody needs that?
That's a good
I
idea.
see Sue nodding her head.
Okay. Sue's nodding her head as needing it. Okay, let me see if I can find it.
And Mel, I'm going to put you and Abel on the spot. Did you let Ella know about the meeting tomorrow? And Ella, if you would
Yes,
send me your email,
yes,
I can get you linked.
I have already sent her the link,
Excellent, good job.
and I've also sent it to Rachel.
Good, I did too.
I just posted in the chat the United Methodist Women / Texas Impact the Legislative event, just the video links.
They had 4 sessions at their meeting a week and a half ago dealing with climate. And those are all YouTube videos.
Okay.
Sue, where are you? What annual conference?
Iowa conference.
Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay, that's North Central jurisdiction, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm conference mission secretary for the conference, and that's why we were
Great.
invited to participate, and I'm glad I have.
And also I will refer you to Kathy, who is the coordinating the jurisdictional for United Methodist Creation Justice Movement.
Okay, that'd be good. Thank you.
Just a real quick, I put the link in, but I made the mistake of putting newsletter link and hitting enter. And then, so my link is separated from the fact that it is the link by a comment by Mark. So just on the chat, you'll go down to and you find the link, and that'll go to the page. You can pull up any of the newsletters from the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at least.
all right, well, let's wind ourselves down. Bob, do you have any last words before we?
No, other than don't hesitate to reach out. My email is bobdowns@sbcglobal.net. I'll put that in also if anybody has any questions that they want to follow up on. Join us, join Earth, go to the Earthkeepers training, come to the Loving People and Planet training, come to the next 2 workshop sessions. There's going to be a great opportunity, I think, to share, and we can learn from each other.
Also, Bob, connect with the other annual conferences in your jurisdiction
Yes.
through UMCJ.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining. It's been a wonderful, and Bob, a great workshop. Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
And we hope to see most of you at the next workshop in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.
Take care.